Hello, and thanks for watching this video. The goal is just to do a thorough, complete, end-to-end convert from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online file in product. There's some initial consideration before converting from desktop to QBO. It's not just as simple as going to the company menu, in desktop, export company file to QuickBooks Online. I mean, it's a three-step process. That is that simple. But there's some things to consider in the Pro or Premier or even Enterprise file, and there is a way to convert Enterprise as long as ActiveX is supported. You do it through Internet Explorer 11. You can find a video on that on my product video site, QuickBooksProductVideos.homestead.com. So I have a PowerPoint I just wanted to run through first, and then we'll go through an actual conversion. Initial considerations, features not yet in QBO. However, there are a lot of third parties that solve for them. The only one that's really unsolvable for a third party right now is labor costing. When you're doing job costing for payroll, you're just going to have to journal entry those amounts in, tag the customer, you're using QBO Plus, and then you've created a budget to actual report so you can see the budget to actual, which is real similar to the estimate to actual reporting you have for contracting in, say, Premier and Enterprise Contractor Edition. The rest can be solved by third parties, but it's important just to kind of look over that list yourself. Anything critical, ask your account manager or someone at Intuit what a good third party would be. Basically, for sales order and inventory, I really love SOS Inventory. For contractors, I like Buildertrend or GetJobber.com. Jobber, they're great. And then for price levels, there's workarounds. Use sub items. And even for job costing, we have a great workaround for that that Stacy Kildall created. So you can also look for a video on that on my website. So just initial considerations, assuming that nothing really calls out in this list to you, or you're going to go QBO with a third party, we'll move on. Now, importing into QuickBooks Online, the transaction targets need to be 350,000 or less. It doesn't have to do with file size anymore, okay? I'll show you where the targets are found in the F2 window. You need to import within the first 60 days unless you are converting a desktop file to the free QBO Plus file we give you in QuickBooks Online Accountant. That has no cap, but assuming you're just going, it's a client's books and they're going to a new QBO sub, you have 60 days to do it. But that is totally reasonable in my mind because you want to do it right away, right after you create the subscription. You can't convert a QuickBooks file currently with multi-currency turned on. I believe we're going to be working on that soon, but at least for now, if multi-currency is turned on in the QB file, you can't convert that file. And we do not recommend converting a file that has inventory because of the post-conversion work. You can look on my website. I have, how to clean up the inventory after converting, and I just think you'll find that it's not worth the time invested. So you're going to start that file out with just opening balance journal entry, import your lists, kind of draw a line in the sand. You can use transaction importer, Pro importer if you want to import transactions, but I just would stay away from converting a file that has doing a lot with inventory. Okay, list considerations. Inactive customers, vendors, and accounts with open balances will be made active again post-conversion. However, items and employees, whether they have a balance or not, they come over as active, actually, even if they're inactive. Now, customers, accounts, and vendors that don't have a balance will come over as inactive. And I mean inactive customers, vendors, accounts will come over as inactive. Other names, there's no other names listed in QBO, so those will be on the vendor list. There's no custom fields for names or items in QuickBooks Online. There's just 3 custom fields on a purchase order or sales receipt estimate invoice, so your sales form. And then no real customer types or sales rep. However, sales rep will come over in one of the sales custom fields. I think it's either the first one or second, the name of the sales rep. Payroll, not all of it is imported. More and more, and we're enhancing this, which is great news, but not all of it will be imported. So you can watch, you can look at that document there that I'm going to show you anyway, but I have a video on payroll, what you have to do after. A lot of the actual compensation items will come over, the employee information, a lot of the W-4 record will come over, so you don't have to set that up again, but you will have to set up some of the company deductions, the liabilities, company contributions, and some of the W-4 info. And of course, you're going to have to put in the year-to-date balances because there's no way for the QBO payroll to know what the desktop payroll has had. That's something to consider as well. So you are going to go through the payroll setup wizard for each employee. It's not a direct conversion at this time, but we're working on it right now, so that's good news. Again, inventory groups, the group items don't really come over. They'll come over on the sales document, It's just kind of like a one item and then a couple subs under it. But the way inventory converts, it's best just not to do that. Memorized transactions and reports do not convert, at least at this time. Price levels, there aren't any price levels in QBO anyway. They're actually not imported. Sorry, the price level list is not imported. Budgets are not imported. You can create them in QBO Plus though, post-conversion. Sales form templates do not at this time convert. And again, this document, I'm going to go ahead and show you right now. It's a Google document I put together based on the old QuickBooks Online Convert from Desktop KB, knowledge base article, if you will. Please feel free to leverage this. Okay, it does everything A to Z. Well, 1099 support to Z, right? I call it the conversion translation. Basically, how do things that you know are in desktop, what do they look like in QBO after conversion? Or do they convert? And I did it alphabetical. It's not me. This is literally copy pasted from the knowledge base article. I just went through and tested everything. It took me about a week, and it's still accurate. Okay, for the most part, 99%, right? And as I update it, you'll always have the latest updated information. So have that. Hopefully that is helpful. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. And then more on payroll. Again, it breaks it down. Transactions and payroll accounts are converted, right? I mean, you're going to have the balances there for the reports. Paychecks and liability payments are converted as regular checks. Liability, refunds, adjustment transactions, opening balance transactions convert as journal entries. And then, again, a lot of info about the employee is converted, and you can watch my video there on what to do post-conversion to set payroll up again. Now, the desktop file, what do you want to do before converting to QuickBooks Online? You might create and restore a portable company file, verify the data, do a couple rebuilds, make sure there's no data integrity issues. And then converting is easy, and we're going to go do it right now, right under the company menu in the file. So that, and then we'll come back to, well, here we go, that slide. Let's go to my QuickBooks file. And again, transaction targets. How many targets are there? It's not about file size. So you hit F2 or Control 1, it brings up the product information window, and you go down to total targets, right? It has to be less than 350,000. Okay, now what is a transaction target? Let's go to an invoice. It is the lines on the transaction. So an invoice, for example, let's go find one here. This is going to have 4 targets. 1, 2, 3, the markup is a line, and then AR is debited, right? So 4 targets. So if you have a 5-line invoice, it's going to be 6 targets, and so on. Like this would be a 2 target. A check would have, you know, the credit of the asset account and debit, you know, the COGS or expense or the items, right? So that makes up targets. So if you can just, there's no way to equate it to file size, but it's important to note that that's the number you're actually looking for when you hit F2. Total targets. And it's 4 down from file size. Assuming that works, then it is pretty easy to go, right? You already know about the initial considerations. We already went over them. This file doesn't have a lot of inventory. I think it actually does have one inventory part, but it's nice to show how it converts. But again, if there's a lot of inventory, I would not do it. Hopefully it's mostly, you know, service company, or if it is an inventory company, you're doing QBO Plus with SOS inventory, which I find is a better option than QuickBooks Enterprise, even with advanced inventory, particularly if someone wants to be mobile. That my choice would be QBO Plus with SOS inventory by far. I love what SOS inventory does, and it provides more functionality. But I think I do have I have a lot of service items, of course. QBO is ideal for service items and 2-sided items because QBO Plus supports that. And as long as they're 2-sided in desktop, they will show up as 2-sided in QBO. Those are the initial considerations, things to consider. Then when you're ready, I've done my verify, rebuild, and I'm confident in this file. You know, I want to make sure that post-conversion, I'm going to look at the balance sheet and P&L accrual basis. I might look at AR and AP aging. I'll look at sales tax liability reports. I mean, you'll know the reports to look at to make sure that the data converted correctly. And if for some reason it doesn't, and that would be in the rare case, just, you know, convert it again. But make sure you've done the verification on the file, the desktop file, before you send it. Now, before I do the conversion, let's talk about, well, where is it going? What about the QBO sub? So if you are a QuickBooks Online accountant user, and you might have the new QBOA, then you would create the client and then just convert from the desktop to this client. I mean, I can just click Add Client and then put in the information, and I'll just call it, you know, CLA Convert, and I'll add it to my list, and then I can choose that, and you guys will see it. But that's not just the only way to do it. So I'll do, you know, CLA Convert, and then display name. You know, you fill out the appropriate information, choose the product. They're going to be, you know, Essentials. Now they're going to be Plus, because I had 2-sided items and I got class tracking, so I got to choose Plus. And the client's going to pay. And I'm the master admin. The client email is going to be me at intuit.com. And again, re-enter it. So you might be setting up the subscription for your client. I'm going to save that. It's going to add the client file to my list. And that's fine. Even if you have QBOA Generation 1 or 2, you can create new QBO subs from QuickBooks Online Accountant. Okay. Just remember that when you do the conversion from the desktop file, you'll see when I log in to see my list of client files for the data to go to, I want to make sure I log in with that account and user ID. So that client's being added. Now, another way to do it while that's being added is maybe your client went to QuickBooks.com and clicked Shop and Save and signed up here. When you're doing the conversion, you're going to want to use your client's user ID and password to see the file when you're converting from desktop. If you're an accountant, though, or a firm, rather than doing QuickBooks.intuit.com, this is really for small businesses to come out here. It's not for firm clients. I really think you guys should instead go to accountants.intuit.com. And when you're here, because this is your site, go to QuickBooks and then go to QuickBooks for Clients QBO, QuickBooks Online, and then click Sign Up Clients. This is where you get the latest pricing from an accountant or firm standpoint, okay? And it even takes off the kind of newer pricing that's eventually going to go back to the older pricing. And then, of course, wholesale pricing we'll talk about in a sec, but that's essentials, that's a plus. And you can just email them the link, and they can sign up or do it for them. That's another way to do it. Accountants.intuit.com, click on QuickBooks, hover over it, and then click on, you can chat with somebody, see? Hover over QuickBooks, and then choose for client QuickBooks Online. That's really for the firm and accountant pricing. However, doing it through QBOA, and especially if you're doing the wholesale billing, right, then you get 50% off for life. So there's a couple of ways the subscription's being created, and hopefully that made sense to you guys. And if I look down, I'll see CLA convert. That's my file, but it's just an empty shell. It's waiting. Okay, because it matters now. When I go to company, export company file to QuickBooks Online, I'm going to log in. And based on my email, it's going to find all those QuickBooks Online subscriptions that are linked to my email address. That's why you got to know who signed up for QBO. So I'm going to do, in my case, my QBOA login to find that CLA convert. If my CLA convert file was signed up by the client, I would put the client's user ID and password here, right? Or maybe I used a different email or something like that, but I did it through QBOA, so I'm going to do this. Password, I read and agree, and you click sign in. So that's one thing to highlight. And here's my list of company files that I want to go ahead and send this data to. And you'll see CLA convert, right? Heads up, you'll overwrite any data you've created with this company. Now, another way to create a QBO sub is through the export process from desktop, right? You can create one on the fly. But then I got to go and have them invite me as an accountant user or do it myself. And I just think starting it from QBOA is way easier, right? Because I don't have to get the accountant user invited. I already am the accountant user when I set up the file from QBOA. So that is a benefit, but it's really up to you. And honestly, most days I don't have a dog in the fight. So I'm going to click continue. It's making a copy of the company file. Yep. And then you should see a success window. It looks good. We'll take it from here. Okay, got it. And you're going to get an email, and they're going to send it to the email, right, that you just signed up with. So when you get the email, click to log into your QBOA or QuickBooks Online, depending on, who actually you're logging in as or who you set up the subscription as. I did it through QBOA, so I'm just going to go to CLA convert. You can see it brought over the closing date, not the password, but the closing date, right? So I'm just going to click the realm picker and CLA convert. It's going to bring me into the QuickBooks Online file, and we should be able to see some data. So on this side, again, you want to go to reports and check your products and services list and chart of accounts under the gear icon, right? Your preferences don't convert, so go to company settings, set that up. Chart of accounts, make sure the parent and subs are correct. Go to your products and services. No memorized transactions came over, so you're going to have to create those. Manage users to invite other users to the company file, right? You can reconcile do a mass reconciliation. Again, sometimes it just comes over as checked as cleared, but you still need to be reconciled. The reconciliation itself is undone. Budgets won't come over, so here's where you'd go ahead and create more budgets. And then the key reports, we'll get back to the products and services list later, but profit and loss. And I want to open this for all dates and do accrual basis and do all dates and run that. And that should match like for example, my total income 408, 220.92 should match, this report here for all dates for 408, 220.92, exactly. And then you would do the balance sheet, all dates. I have total assets 4611. Go back to QBO. And again, you can duplicate the tab if you want to have more than one window open within the same QBO file. I'm going to go back to reports, and I have P&L open in one and a balance sheet open in another. I'm going to do all dates, 46111. Yeah, so that's good. And then, QBO has a transaction detail report as well, accountant reports. Scroll down, and you go ahead and click on transaction detail by account. One trick for this one, and I'll do all dates. I want to do that same, what's in undeposited funds. I'm going to group by account and sort by, leave the columns as they are, but when you go to the list section, which is filter, I'm going to choose transaction type payment, and distribution account is going to be undeposited funds. Distribution account. And you run the report, and that total at the bottom should match what you have, for all dates in desktop. 352, 172.50, and then desktop 352, 172.50. And it just goes on from there. I mean, you guys will think of the other reports you need. The register balance would probably be a good one to look at as well. So again, QuickBooksProductVideos.Homestead.com. Click on QBO, and you scroll down. A couple good ones here. How to resolve inventory after converting from desktop to QBO. It's 11 minutes, and then you got a 12-minute on payroll. At the end of the day, a simple process, or can be, but there are some initial considerations, and I just kind of want to do a more thorough overview of converting from desktop to QBO, and I hope that this was helpful.